Modern day change management is hard. Companies are constantly deploying new features to multiple environments, be it multiple regions or multiple cloud providers. Pulumi ESC tackles this problem head on through its unique take on versioning. Hello, I'm Arun, product manager at Pulumi. Today, I'm joined by Cleve Littlefield, general manager of Pulumi ESC. He'll walk us through how versioning helps teams securely manage secrets and configuration. Welcome, Cleve.
Hello.
Keith, can you tell us why you're excited about building Pulumi ESC?
I've been managing software for close to 30 years, and all of the teams I've worked with have struggled with configuration and secrets management. They often try to build their own tool, and they don't end up in a happy place. Or they try to buy something, and it doesn't quite fit their needs. I believe we have threaded that needle with Pulumi ESC, and I'm genuinely excited to share our approach. Most systems try to version at a per secret level, and while that may seem desirable, often changes roll out together, they roll back together, that granularity just gets in the way. Or they leave config to be managed in another system, leading to friction as you roll these changes out. We think that configuration and secrets belong together.
Thank you, Cleve, for sharing that experience. Now, let's start with the basics. How versioning can help engineering and security teams manage their secrets and configuration. Can you also give us a demo?
Yeah, so here I'm on the ESC environments page. I'm going to go ahead and search for my project here. And here I have this versioning environment. Here I have an AWS login providers so I can get AWS credentials. We'll cover that in a future video. But now I'm going to scroll down and see the key configuration here, which is what is the food and wine pairing for tonight's dinner. I'm leveraging that over here in my Pulumi IAC program. So you can see I'm pulling in the food and wine pairing via Pulumi config. And this is just setting up a very simple Lambda with a REST API front end. And we're going to leave the implementation secret for now. Now, this all gets pulled together in the Pulumi stack config. So here I have a Pulumi stack called versioning, and it's pulling in the Pulumi ESC environment, also called versioning. And I'm pulling in a particular tag. We'll show how that works in a moment. So all of this is deployed, and I have a stack output, and you can see that I've made a great choice for tonight's meal. So that's basically what the Lambda does. It will tell you whether you made a good or a bad choice. But I'm not really feeling pasta for dinner tonight. I had pasta last night. I'm gonna say I want steak, and I'm gonna switch over to white wine. This seems great. Pretty confident this will be okay. I'm gonna click save here, and I've updated that environment. Now I'm going to go up here to the versions view, and I can see that I created a new version just a few seconds ago. Now that we saw that the Pulumi IAC stack was linked to the stable tag. So by default, this won't do anything with that stack, but I can move this stable tag over and attach it to this revision. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. And now if I go over, I've got this stack favorited over here. I'm going to click over and go over to that stack. I'm going to open it in a new window here and go over to deployments and see that a deployment has automatically been kicked off to run with this revision.
Wow, how did that happen? You made a change in an environment and you just moved a tag and all of a sudden a new deployment is running. Can you show us how?
Yeah, absolutely. If I go over here back to my environment, I can go over to webhooks, and you can see I have a couple webhooks here. I'm going to click on this one and see that, edit this webhook and see that we have both kind of generic webhooks to Slack and Microsoft Teams, but also one to Pulumi deployments. And that you can see it's kicking off that particular project in Stack, and it's only doing it when an environment revision tag is updated, which is what we just did. So going back over to my deployment, we can see how that is going. And this will take a moment. It's processing the update right now as we speak. Okay, at this point, my Lambda has been updated. I'm going to go over to here and click refresh, and oh, steak and white wine is a bad idea. I didn't know. So I need to fix this as quick as I can. So I'm going to go back over to the environment editor. Actually the environment versions, and that's as simple as just moving that tag back to where it was, right? And so I can go ahead and click and move that, and you can see that if I come back over here and kind of click on deployments, we can see another deployment is running, and that should get me into a good state.
That's really good. I like how we can just simply manipulate the tags and kick off a new deployment, also reward your changes effectively, as you just shown here. I have one question though. Now you made a change and that is not a change that you want. Now the latest revision is actually an environment that is invalid. Do you have to manually revert those edits?
Yeah, I can go back over here to versions and say that there is a better way to do that. Like I could go manually make those changes, but really I want this version to be the latest, right? I want to roll back to that version. So I'm going to click roll back, and that's going to show me the difference between the latest version and the version that I roll back to. And when I click confirm, it would roll back to that version and I would be back in a good state.
I really like that we can go and compare the changes before deploying it or making and confirming the rollback. I'm curious, like, is that only visible when you actually rolling back something?
No, we have this compare revisions feature where I can kind of compare any revision to another and see the delta. And so I can go back and you can see I've done a lot of switching between pasta here, but I can see any revision um, and see if they are the same or different than what was applied during that time.
That makes sense. As a developer, I think this is one of the most useful feature for me to compare configuration over time as well before I make any changes. So thanks for sharing that.
So my deployment is finished, and let's go and check and see that I've returned back to a good place. All right, I made a good choice. Whew, I fixed my problem.
That's great. I'm glad we are able to reward the changes in production. Is there a way I could have tested this even before it rolled out into production? Seems kind of bad that you have to roll back the change and kick off multiple deployments to begin with.
Yeah, so absolutely. Let's go show how we might do that, right? So I'm going to go back to this editor, and so I'm going to go ahead and make another questionable choice here. I'm going to say fish and red wine, but this time I've learned my lesson. I'm going to go ahead and test this feature. So I'm going to click save, and in this case, because I've not changed the stable tag, this version is possibly incorrect. It hasn't been tested yet, but my stable tag is still keeping me safe for revision 30, which is the last known good version. Now, over here in my IC, I have another stack, which is my beta stack. And you can see that that's pulling in the same versioning environment, but this time it's left out the version tag. If you leave out the version tag, it's the same as if I had done latest. It's an implicit latest. And so that's going ahead and pulling in that latest version. You can see I've also got a webhook set up for versioning beta. I'm going to open this up in a new tab, and I can see that has kicked off a deployment, and that's currently running. While that's running, I'm going to pull up the Lambda for this version, different Lambda. And you can see it's still running the old latest, the steak and white wine that I just committed. It's already applied that. But in a moment, that will tell me whether my fish and red wine was a good decision. So you can see that deployment is done, and I can go back to this beta version of my Lambda and say, yeah, fish and red wine is a bad idea. If I go back to my original Lambda, I can see that it's unaffected because it's tied to that tab. So we can safely pilot changes. We could roll them out with efficient use of tagging. We could really narrow our audience for particular things. I don't have to just roll out latest. I could roll out a tag tied to maybe a beta group or something like that. You have kind of a lot of flexibility to safely roll out changes.
I like how you manipulate the tags and use tags to kind of leverage testing even before you roll it out to production. I'm curious, like, are only simple tags supported? What type of tags can you create, and what have you seen customers use within Pulumi ESC?
Tags are a simple concept, but you can do a lot with more complex tagging. So for example, here I've got just stable, very, very simple, but others need kind of more support. Let's say maybe you're in an environment that really embraces semver and you want to do semver even with your configuration management. Similar to Docker Hub, you can create tags via, so I can say here's v3, and I can say this is v3.21, and I can come over here and say this is 3.20. And now I've supported with a few simple tags, major and minor versions. And of course, you could go further with patch versions, but you can support SemBear in this environment. And so if someone is tied to v3, they will get the absolute latest. If they really want to say, no, I've only tested up to v3.20, they can do that and implement SemBear. We've also seen sometimes teams roll out more kind of time-based occurrences. Maybe they have a monthly update. So, you could do something like Feb 2025 as a tag concept. Really, this is limited only to your imagination and the architecture that you'd like to do to roll out tags.
Sounds like it's up to the users to figure out what is the method that they want to use and go ahead and just use it. I'm also curious, like all the integration that you have set up, it works seamlessly between, Pulumi ESC environments and between deployments and Pulumi IAC. Does such type of integration work only with IAC and deployments?
No, we have a ESC SDK. We have a REST API. We also have integration with Kubernetes, both an external secrets provider and a CSI provider. We have integration with our command line. So here I'm going to go ahead and say that from the command line, I can tag a revision. So you can do it that way. In addition to the command line, you can use our VS Code extension. So here in VS Code, I'm going to click, and you can see here's the multiple orgs I belong to. And I can see all the different projects. I can go down to the escapades project that we've been looking at and our versioning. I can see all the different revisions. I can quickly open and edit and save a new version. I can look at previous versions. I can even diff these. So I could say select for compare and compare with selected and diff those versions just like in the console. I can tag right from within this experience as well. So I really have, the complete ESE kind of editing experience if I live within VS Code.
Totally. As a developer, I don't want to leave VS Code, and it sounds like I don't need to because everything is just available right there. You mentioned, a ton of options: SDK, CLI, REST API, Kubernetes operator. There's just so much option and ways to engage within Pulumi ESC. I'm curious, as a new user who's just trying to start out using Pulumi ESC, where should I begin? Which one should I use?
ESC tries to meet you where you live. So again, if you're a CLI user or you live in VS Code, absolutely ESC, you can explore the features from those environments. But often to get a full sense of what ESC is capable of, the console will give you the complete layout of all the different features involved within ESC. So we definitely recommend people start there, but we will meet you wherever you are.
That was a great deep dive into versioning. Thank you, Cleve.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. We have got more lined up for you.